Hey everybody, this is Andrea from the Stigma-Free Society. I'm president and co-founder, and I am here today to talk to an astounding individual who has been in the media quite a bit, talks about rural issues and mental health, and I really am excited to have you here today, Jeff. Welcome.
Thanks. That's kind of a big introduction. I don't know if I can live up to all that, but we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, we'll see what you can do. So here at Stigma-Free Society, for our viewers, we're a nonprofit organization, registered charity since 2010. We focus on programs that bring awareness about the stigmas and with a focus on mental health and creating acceptance in the world of ourselves and other people. So to start off, I want to share Jeff's bio, and people get so uncomfortable when I share bios, but it is pretty impressive, Jeff, and you're going to have to handle it. All right.
All right.
Okay. How do you pronounce your last name?
It's very Germanish, Ditzenberger.
Yeah. Jeff Ditzenberger has been in agricultural for his entire life. From a small dairy operation growing up in South Wayne, a FFA and FFA alumni member, to an agricultural mechanic and salesperson for 20 years. He worked in agricultural advertising as well as owning his own dairy farm, right?
Yep.
Excellent. Then went to a neighbor doing strictly crops. He was the Greene County Farm Bureau president for 10 years and Ag Chest VP for 5, as well as many agriculture-related committees and groups. He brings a vast array and diverse agricultural perspective. He is also a certified mental health life coach and currently working on his peer specialist certification and his QPR, Question, Persuade, Refer, Instructor Qualified. So that sums up on our end what we have gathered about you, and I'm just very happy to have you here today to talk about mental health, to talk about your story. And I was wondering if you could just first share with me a little bit about you, in addition to that bio, just how it was, what it was like growing up in a rural community for you, and would love to hear more about you.
So the town that I grew up in, South Wayne, Wisconsin, was a town of about 400 people. Lived there my entire life. We had a small dairy operation there. Dad milked 50 cows. My uncle milked 50 cows. They were kind of in a partnership for quite a few years, and then they split. But my grandfather, who is probably one of the biggest influences in my life, he got a house in town, and he had to go right by our place to go to the other farm in the morning. So he stopped in and did chores, and taught me a lot of stuff about the agricultural side of things and the mechanic side of things. And then when I graduated high school, I went to the United States Navy. At 17 and a half, I had to have my parents sign to get me in, mostly because I thought the Navy would be a lot easier than living at home, which the first time I got woke up at 4:30 in the morning, they shattered that theory all the
right.
So anyways, and then it was kind of interesting. You go from a town of like 400 people to a boot camp of, thousands of people. And then after I graduated boot camp, I went to Philadelphia for school to learn how to be a welder, plumber, pipe fitter, firefighter. And then after that, I was assigned to a ship in California. So as you can kind of see, like I went from like a one bedroom house to like a really big mansion. All of a sudden, like I'm around all these people. Saw my first, other races, other ethnicities. So it was kind of a huge culture shock. For me to be that little farm kid who was shy and quiet, which I know after this whole conversation, you guys are gonna be like, yeah, right. You were never shy and quiet, but I really was at one point in time. Anyways, so that was kind of my life story as far as, where I started from and where I got to. And it was some things that happened in my childhood and during the service that kind of got my mental health on a really, really bad track. Very bullied in high school. I was a little kid. I mean, I graduated high school weighing like 90 pounds and I was 5'2", and then get in the service and hit a growth spurt. My company commander always gave me crap about it. He's like, "Are you sure you're not 12 years old, son?" And I'm like, "No, sir, I'm pretty sure I'm not." Yeah, I had a couple of uniform changes even while I was in boot camp, and then came home at like 5'7" and I don't know, 130 pounds or something. I mean, it was kind of surreal. But yeah, so that kind of brings you up. I mean, as far as what my basic how I got here stuff is.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing all that. You touched on your mental health journey, and here at Stigma-Free Society, we really love to share personal stories, and that's why we reach out to you, because we want to hear about your mental health journey, living in a rural community, what that was like for you, and how did it affect you living in a community that is more remote, agricultural, and how does that relate to your mental health journey as well?
Well, so when I got out of the service, I was married. I actually got married right after boot camp, so I barely turned 18, and I was married to my high school sweetheart. And then when I got out, we had some problems right from the get-go, honestly. And when I got out of the service, I was in Operation Desert Storm. So the first year of marriage, I got to see my new bride for like 35 days. You're sitting out, and I wasn't boots on the ground as far as the military goes, but we were an ammunition oil replenishment ship. So we're basically like, if, a 22 bullet hit us, we're going to blow up. So there's some stress with that, and excuse me, being away from home and, all the other things that kind of go along with that. And so when I came back from the service, one of the things that was kind of affecting me was some PTSD. And I knew I had some problems, but I didn't know what for sure. And one of the first struggles, and one of the things that I have a hard time with even still today is that, it's hard to find mental health services in rural America, especially from an agricultural standpoint, because it's like today, I'm taking an hour and a half out of my time to drive to town to my office to do this. And not that I'm not complaining, but I'm just saying, I've got to take the time to, I'm stepping away from we're trying to get ready for harvest. So I'm working on the combine and stuff like that. Dairy farmers have animals that need to be taken care of 24/7. Beef farmers have animals that need, so animal agriculture, it's like, okay, when am I supposed to take time off to go to see a doctor in town, about my mental health? And they're already isolated anyways. And I joked, when the pandemic first started to hit in 2020, people are like, oh, we don't want to be socially isolated. And I'm like, we've been socially isolated most of our lives. Like, stay in the city, folks. It's, there's kind of a running joke about that. So to find help was hard enough. Insurance is a big thing, here in the States, mental health insurance. Well, health insurance in general is hard to get, but mental health coverage is harder yet. And then, one of the things that really bugged me the most is like, I wanted to talk to my friends. Like, I wanted to talk to my guy friends and be like, and I did. I'd be like, dude, I'm having a rough day. Like, I just want to talk. And they'd be like, oh, suck it up, buttercup. Or, oh, it'll be better tomorrow. Or, you've got a beautiful wife and a great job. Like, what do you have to be sad about? I'm like, well, maybe your attitude, that kind of sucks.
Right.
So there's one of those stigmas, I can remember growing up hearing older generation dads and grandpas and uncles and stuff like that, and saying, and my grandfather never did it, but saying things like, keep crying and I'll give you something to cry about. And it automatically sets that tone for men, especially, that, oh, we can't talk about our feelings. And I love it too, Andrea, when I do speeches in front of live audiences, especially big ones, it never fails. Like, there's always a 90-10 split, like 90% of them are men, 10% are women. And I'll say, okay, let's say the word feelings. Guys, you go first. And it's like, feelings. And women, ladies say the word feelings, and like, they just blow me out of this, yeah, exactly. Like, ah! It's like scoring a touchdown. And like, for guys, when you score. And that's what I'll say. I'll be like, okay, guys, we're at a sporting event. They just scored a touchdown, but you can't say touchdown. You have to say feelings, and it comes up, but there's that first thing that, kind of affected me, was that you already kind of shut down as a male to try to reach out anyways. And then you do reach out and you get shut down even more. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen with women and, all genders and stuff. I get that. But for men, we're supposed to be tough and powerful and, mighty and shoulder all this response. Oh man, that's so exhausting. And then, you get into a smaller community. Everybody knows your business. So then it's like, oh, I don't want to go see somebody because, oh my God, if they know I'm going to the shrink, that's just terrible. There's another thing. Why do we call them shrinks? You know, I call them expanders because honestly, the therapists that I've seen, my good therapists that I deal with, you know, they expand my thought process. They help me get the crap out of my head that's going on with me a lot of the times and stuff like that. So here I am, a male in rural America. I'm a veteran. I'm a farmer. I'm also working a job in town. And I decide one night that I decided it over a 6-week time period. I actually had my own suicide attempt back in the early 90s, right after I got out of the service. And I planned for it for 6 weeks. I'm not usually a planner either. Like usually I'm like I just do things on this, but I did all the telltale signs that we talk about. I gave away my prized possessions when people would say, okay, we'll see you later. And I'm like, no, probably not. I gave those telltale signs. And the night that I decided to end my life, I actually started an old abandoned house on fire that was part of the farm I was working for. It hadn't been lived in for like 20 years. And yes, I understand there's easier ways to do this and quicker ways, but I'm sure there was a whole reason behind this. But the part that I find kind of funnily ironic is that I wrote a note. Like I wrote the whole note on a piece of paper, and told my brother I was sorry, that I wasn't going to be around, but he would be better off without me, and told my grandparents to not think of me as a disappointment, all this other stuff. So I write this great elaborate note out, and then I folded it up and I put it in my pants pocket, and then I went into a house and I lit it on fire.
Wow.
I don't know what happens up in your neck of the woods, but when we we start a fire and we put paper in it, it goes okay. So, it's just kind of, when I tell that in a live audience situation, there's like half the room that's like the elephant in the room, and the other half of the room is like laughing kind of, hysterically. The other ones are like, oh my God, I want to laugh, but is it really that funny? And so I ended up getting charged with arson. So I have a class D felony on my record. And the thing that I reiterate all the time is that I was less embarrassed as a volunteer firefighter who is a veteran to admit or to take the felony rap as opposed to admit that I had tried to kill myself.
Wow. And that stigma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Self-stigma, right? And when I know I have bipolar disorder and I attempt in my life as well. And I know that place, we have our unique experiences, of course. But yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I feel like when we share our stories, it really could reach somebody who's in that place. And you also mentioned PTSD. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering, obviously, as you were talking, your mental health, the seriousness of the issues that you were facing led to this attempt. And for our viewers, how did PTSD play out for you? What was that like?
Well, let's back up just a half a step, Andrea.
Yeah.
So I've been diagnosed with PTSD. Bipolar 2, because if I'm going to do it, I'm going to take the next level. None of this bipolar 1 stuff. I'm going to excel at it. I have multiple anxieties. I have relationship anxiety. I have being in front of people anxiety, which I know you find really hard to believe, but it is. I do. I have just like a generalized anxiety. Just before you came in and we started talking, I could feel the throat tighten up and the heart race and stuff like that. And some of it is great because I use that to my advantage. I use that, I remind myself that there could be somebody out there experiencing that same thing. And I want to let them know that it's okay to be anxious. You can get a lot of things done sometimes when you're anxious. And then I have a little bit of some borderline personality disorder too. But anyways, the one of the big things, and what's really interesting is I actually heard a psychiatrist say this on the A&E documentary that I was in on Monday night, was that, PTSD is about trying not to bring up a situation that caused it, but yet in order to talk about it and get some closure or try to get some way to deal with it, you have to bring it up. So it's
wow, yeah.
I know that stove is hot, but I have to touch it anyways to prove that to me. It's just, so PTSD to me, if someone yells at me, I can get triggered by it really, really bad. I coached girls softball. My little, who's now 15 and not so little anymore, but when she was 10, she asked me to coach her softball team. And this last year I was coaching, and she's not with this program anymore. She's actually at the high school level now, but I'm also my nonprofit and my business sponsor the team. So they're like, hey, you want to come? And the guy that I coach with, we've turned out to be really, really good friends. But I had a parent yell at me because I didn't send their daughter to steal second base, which I had told the kid to go. The kid didn't listen to me. But the way she said it, like, it triggered me. And I said that night, I'm like, I'm done. I'm resigning. Like, I can't deal with this kind of stuff. And I was dealing with some other things. I had just lost a good friend to suicide on Father's Day. He had shot himself, and his birthday was on Tuesday, which was the next night after the game. So, there were some other things that were going on. So, people, I get frustrated when I see things on social media where they use the word triggered, and they have some kind of a mockery of it. And it's like, no, I go through this on a regular basis. There are things that will happen. Like, I hear a loud bang and it messes with me. I hear certain words and it messes with me because of things that have happened in my past. And even from the, I've even, my therapist, who's freaking phenomenal, by the way, she even said you can get PTSD from relationships. And I never really thought about that, but there's been some bad relationships that I've been in that have triggered some of that and kind of take me back, and I've got to bring myself back out to it. And the thing that frustrates me, I think, on Andrea, is it Andrea or Andrea?
Definitely not Andrea from 90210. I like Andrea.
Okay, cool. Anyway, I wanted to make sure, because I have a friend who's Andrea, so I wanted to make.
Yeah, it's okay.
So the thing that frustrates me about it is that people are like, well, what did you do to cure your mental illnesses? And I'm like, I don't. I face them every day. Like, I literally struggle to get up in the morning. I want people to understand, people that are listening, I want them to understand that I literally struggle to get out of bed every day. Like, because I wonder what could potentially trigger me for the day. And then I kind of take a step back and I look at my social media and I send out a few emails and I do my little funny dad joke of the day on my nonprofit page and stuff like that. And the thing for me is that routine is good to get me going. And then after that, I just kind of like wing it after that. But it's frustrating that that people are like, well, why can't you just like snap out of it? Why can't you just, take some medication? Why can't you just, go talk to somebody? Why can't? Well, here's a question for everybody else. Why can't you just accept it?
Yeah. Yes. Well, that gives people a lot to think about. And you mentioned, which I'm so interested to hear about, your nonprofit. So out of all of your experiences, you've created something great, obviously. And I would love to hear about the values and the mission and how it came to fruition. So the nonprofit that I started, which is called Tugs, and I'll explain that here in a minute. I had written a blog for Wisconsin Farm Bureau Federation at the time that I was Greene County Farm Bureau president. They asked me to write a blog, and I was like, okay. So I wrote a blog about men and mental health. And I always joke, I'm like, what are the first three letters of mental? MEN. Yeah.
Who talks about the least, MEN. So I set this blog up about what I went through as a male and how it's important to talk about feelings and how it's important to get things out and how it's important to help one another as men and as farmers and as rural people, the whole 9 yards. And they weren't going to print it. They were like, absolutely not. And I'm like, I go, well, I got a solution for this. Then I said, you can send me a refund on my dues and don't ever ask me to be a member again. And they're like, yeah, but you're a county president. And I'm like, I don't care. I'll resign. And they're like, you're that passionate about do you really want people to know your history? And I'm like, I was on the front page of the paper for setting a house on fire as a freaking volunteer fire department. Like, what? It's not like I'm walking around town square freaking in my underwear, which most people around here won't care anyways, but there's another whole story behind that. But anyways, so after I wrote that blog, it really got steam. Like, there were so many people that were like, thank you for doing this. Thank you for stepping outside the box. Yep. Thank you for writing a blog for an agricultural organization that wasn't related directly to production agriculture or any of that, all that feel-good stuff that we try to say about farmers. Yeah, we're proud people. We do hard work. We do this, we do that. But guess what? We're still human and we still have emotions. We still have feelings. So the director of communications, his wife at that time was working for Dane County Safe Communities, and Dane County is our capital seat county. So our nation, or not nation, our state capital is in Madison, Wisconsin, which is in Dane County. And she's like, hey, would you want to speak at this thing we're doing called Guys Night Out? And I was like, oh, like pizza and beer and like football? Yeah, I'm in, And so I'm like, well, what do I need to talk about? And she's like, I want you to do something off of like men and mental health. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. So I took my best friend Scott with me that night, and my uncle is a paranoia schizophrenic who we cut out of the rafters hanging from a rope when I was a freshman in high school. And he's actually become one of my biggest inspirations and one of those people that I can really bounce things off of because he gets it. And then his best friend went with him. And on the way up there, I was starving. I'm like, can we stop at McDonald's quick? And I don't know why the heck I would ever do that, but we stopped at McDonald's, and I got about halfway through my McDonald's and I was reading my speech, and I'm like, to both the McDonald's and my speech. And so I grabbed my burger back up, threw it in the bag, ripped my paper up, threw it in the bag, and Scott's like, wasn't that your speech? I'm like, yep. What are you going to talk about? I don't know. But I'm not a speech writer. Like even when I was in forensics and FFA and I did extemp and group discussion, like I'm not I can't do this. I can't read from the paper because then I lose my
heart, right? It's like from the heart when you talk. Yeah.
Right. And so, and you know what they say, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with, and I can't say that on live air. But anyways, so we have a lot of it in the country though. So anyways, I got up there and they introduced me, and as I was getting done, I was talking a little bit more about my military experience. And that ship that I mentioned to you earlier, Andrea, was the second largest displacement ship next to an aircraft carrier. And actually, I have a picture of it. So if you can see,
wow,
my ship is the one in the middle. Okay. So what we did is we would refuel and everybody while we were a floating 7-Eleven. So the cool thing about it is that when we got into port, when we were coming back home, or if we were going down like a narrow waterway or maybe a treacherous area, because we're not very maneuverable, we'd have to call a tugboat. And you can't see the tugboat, but you hear a little toot toot and little puffs of smoke coming up. And I was down below in the engine, down in the engineering department, and it was really awesome. Like the whole ship would go quiet, and you'd get this sense of calm. And it's like you could really hear the like the bolts creaking and like a little bit of the water kind of against the hull and stuff. And then you feel this little bump, and then you'd feel yourself move, and then you feel another little bump. And this magical voice would come out across the little speakers and say, I'll paraphrase it, we're safe in port, time to go home. And I was thinking to myself, why, this is a lot like life. Like, what if you were a big, tough ship and all of a sudden your engines failed in the middle of the storm and you needed some way to get back home safe, or you're looking at this narrow passageway and the waters are super, super rough. And what if you could call a tugboat to come rescue you? So anyways, we're driving back home and I'm like totally agitated. Like my anxiety is going and my bipolarism is going, like everything's going, like all these things, and I can't get my thoughts. And I said to Scott, I go, Scott. I said, I want to start a nonprofit. And he's like, you already farm. Do you need another one? And I'm like, no, I want a nonprofit that helps people. And so I came up with Tugs, talking, understanding, growing, and supporting, because even big ships need little ships sometimes. And that's how Tugs was made.
Right on. What kind of services do you offer? Like maybe the speaking? Do you have like programs? Tell us about it.
I do quite a bit of different things. I do public speaking where I'll talk about my personal experience. I'll talk about how we can enrich other people's lives, how we can make people's days better, how we can get rid of toxic positivity, which is, what's the common thing? Like if you tell somebody, oh, I'm having a rough day. Oh, that's okay. Somebody's got it worse than you do.
No, that's the worst when you minimize.
Yeah. Or it'll be okay tomorrow.
Yeah. Or focus on the
bad
positive.
Yeah. Tell you what, poly positive, there's the door right there. Anyways, so, how to just say to someone, you know what, I understand you're having a rough day.
Yeah.
What can I do for you? Do you just need me to sit? Do you need to listen? Do you need me to listen? Do you need me to buy you ice cream? What do I need to do to do that part of it? I'm also a QPR instructor, which is question, persuade, and refer. So I am authorized to train others. And what QPR is like CPR for mental health. Ask the question, are you thinking about suicide? Are you, do you wish that you could go to sleep and never wake up? Like, we give people the tools to put in their little suicide awareness toolbox to actually have the conversation with people. And then we persuade people. You know what? Remember when you gave our boss that really cool coffee cup that he laughed about? He uses that every day. Like, you influence somebody. So you matter. You need to stay with us. And then the refer part is to get him either to a mental health professional or like a person like myself. Like, I don't diagnose or any of that kind of stuff, but as a mental health coach, I can deal with the here and now. And what a peer specialist, I'm working on my certification to become a peer specialist. And what a peer specialist does, and the only way you can become a peer specialist is to actually have lived in life experience. Yep. So I can help people with their alcoholism. I can help people with their drug addiction. I can help people with their suicide ideation. And like I get it. Like, when I say to them, I can understand where you're coming from, they totally understand. Like, that's a true statement. It's not like someone who's just read a book and says, well, I know what you're feeling. Nah, you really don't. And the biggest mission of my organization is to reduce and eventually eliminate the stigmas that surround mental health and suicide, to eliminate the stigmas that mental health people are crazy, to eliminate the stigma that people with mental health problems are a burden on society, to eliminate the stigma that, people that try to die by suicide are weak people. There's so many of these things, these phrases, I see people on Facebook that'll say, oh, I broke up with Susie, she's so bipolar. No, dude, you're like crap and you're an idiot. She's not bipolar. She was trying to tell you to get your crap together and you didn't do it. So that's one of my, that's the things that I'm passionate about. Like, I want people to understand that they can have a bad day. Yeah. I want other people to understand that it's okay to let those people have their bad day. It's okay to support someone during a bad day or even a bad week, but I remind people all the time, it's just a bad day. It's not a bad life. Like, there are things out there that you can find your purpose or your happiness with, and you don't have to be Johnny Sunshine every single day of the week. And at the same time, also, this has been something that's become real prevalent, especially with the pandemic, is that it's okay to be exhausted, but can we just be kind? Like, can we get back to just human, decent kindness? Words matter. To me, words are so very important. And I talk about, around here, we have a in Wisconsin, one of our biggest churches we call is Quick Trip. It's a gas station, but they have like good donuts and stuff like that. And there was one day that I was at Quick Trip and I was getting some soda and stuff. And you know how it is, like when you go into one of your local places and you say things like, hey, how you doing? Or how's it going today? And everybody's like, oh, I'm good. Complete strangers, whatever. And there was a guy that I said that to, and he goes, what do you care? And I'm like, well, I did ask you, like, what's going on? And he's like, do you really want to know? And I said, yeah, I guess I kind of do. I asked. And he says, well, I think my cat's dying. And I said, why do you think your cat's dying? And he told me what the cat was doing. Like, she would eat and then be like, and then, not drink very good and trouble's going into the bathroom and stuff. And I'm like, dude, I think your cat has a hairball. And he was like, what's a hairball? And I told him, and he goes, what do I need to do? And I says, you can just go to Walmart or, local store and you can get the little tube. And I said, it's going to be gross, but you feed it to him a little bit and hopefully it'll be fine. If it's not fine in a couple of days, then of course, get a hold of your vet, get a hold of a veterinarian. And we parted ways that day. And I didn't even think about it until 6 weeks later when I was in Quick Trip again. And he walked up behind me just as I was getting ready to pay for my stuff. And he threw down the credit card And he says, I'm paying for this man's breakfast. And I turned around and here it's Cat Guy. And that's all I know him by because I never asked him his name. And he goes, do you remember who I am? And I go, yeah, I remember. You're the guy with the cat. And he goes, I need to talk to you outside. And I'm like, oh no, what did I do? So we go outside and he goes, you were right. It was a hairball. And I'm like, awesome. So your cat's doing good? And he's like, my cat's doing phenomenal. Things are great, blah, blah, blah. And I said to him, I said, that's good. And I said, well, have a good day. And he goes, no. He says, this story isn't done. And I go, okay. He said, I had just moved here from the other side of the nation. And the day I walked into the new job I was supposed to have, they told me, we don't really need you after all. So I had just uprooted my entire life, came to this little town, and now I've got nothing. No job, no family, no friends, no nothing. And he says, and I literally told myself that morning that if my cat died, I was going to die with my cat. And I think about the number of people that we as human beings come in contact with every day, whether it be coworkers or family or complete strangers, that our words can have a powerful impact. Yeah. You know, last year, what was the big buzzword? Masks. And I said the whole time, I'm like, be cautious, look at people's eyes, try to talk to people. Don't do this texting stuff. Actually have conversations with people because masks hide smiles and smiles can hide depression. You know, we become in this society that's just like, you know, we text you know, hey, Andrea, how you doing today? And you text back, I'm okay. Well, if I call you and say, hey, Andrea, how you doing today? You might say, hey, Ditz, I'm okay. Or you might say, I'm okay. Yeah. Well, that is going to lead me into something you want to talk about. But if I'm just doing this on my little phone, I can't figure out what's going on.
Yeah. So, human connection. Definitely important. Thank you. Wow, that was an amazing story and reminds us that being authentic in our answers. When somebody asks me, how are you doing? I'm one of those people who actually is like, not so great today, you know, and then they're always surprised. But many of them will say, well, I hope it gets better for you. And that actually feels really good. And I think being honest with each other and cultivating human connection and being kind, right? So thanks for that story and thanks for being here. We're closing up now, but I was wondering just briefly if you could share a message that, say somebody is struggling out there and, you know, they feel alone. Is there some type of encouragement that you can tell them right now?
If you're struggling right now, I would highly recommend talking to someone. If you're someone who thinks you know someone who's struggling, reach out to them. It's better to spend 5 minutes listening to them tell you that they're okay, or spend, you know, an hour listening to them tell you about what's not going good with them than it is to listen to 5 minutes of a eulogy. If you are struggling, you know what? You're not alone. You're normal. You're going through some of the same things that the rest of us do. There's someone out there that appreciates you. And I will tell you that you matter and you have value. You know what? You can find a $20 bill crumpled up on the side of the road. And if you take that $20 bill, no matter how crumpled up it is and how dirty it is, and you smooth out the rough edges and you make it all nice and clean again, that $20 bill still has the same value as it did as what it was when it was crumpled up. So if you're feeling crumpled up, your value has not decreased. And there's someone out there that will smooth out the rough edges, and they will definitely do what it takes to make you feel like a fresh, crisp $20 bill all over again.
I love your metaphors and analogies. Thank you so much. They really, really touched my heart, actually, especially the story about the cat. And meeting you has been quite an honor for me. And thank you so very much, Jeff, for coming out. But before we go, where could people find your nonprofit, or you want to share a website or where people could find you? Actually, let me see if I can get this to work here. There is my contact information. There's my email. Yeah. And then see it. Are you guys in Canada, or where are you guys at? We're in Canada. Okay. So I don't know what your guys' like national suicide hotline or anything like that is, but I would highly recommend that if you have that information, get it out to your listeners. Yeah, you know, we have a website. Yeah. Yep. We have a national one here too. Also, if you go on Facebook and you search Talking
understanding, the Tugs, our Tugs Facebook page will come up. We put out information on there every single day. I also do like a funny dad pun joke because you know what, we all need a little laughter.
We all need to laugh. Yes.
Yep. Like yesterday was some Indians standing around a teepee that somebody put toilet paper around, and they're like, well, that's a little redundant, you know, because you TP to TP. So a little dad joke there too. But I mean, just, you know, that's and we put out a lot of good, valuable information out there. We're not exclusive at all. I mean, we're not inclusive. We're not inclusive at all. We have people that can help with the LGBTQ community. We have people that can help with people in the military. We have people that can help with farmers. You know, we've got that whole gamut. So I don't want people to think that Tugs is just about farmers in rural America, but that's kind of where my expertise is at, because that's what I've been doing. But we do have other resources available too. So
amazing. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Jeff. Honored to talk to you today. And for everybody out there, thank you for tuning in. Please share this Facebook Live. It'll also be posted on YouTube. I hope you have a wonderful day. If you need support, like Jeff has shared, reach out for help and know that you're not alone. Thank you, everybody. Take care.